Greetings, 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 greetings. Peace, love, harmony, and light. And this is Chief Kalinago with a video. Man, listen. Woo! I have such a powerful video for y'all today. Like I always bring great information. A lot of work and time was put into this. Okay, so let me just make sure I'm good on Facebook. Let me make sure I'm good on Facebook. All right, hope everybody is doing good. All right, let me just make sure I'm good on YouTube. Give me 1 second while I give you guys some time to log into this. Do me a favor, guys. Go ahead and share this link on your respective platforms. This is just definitely great information that needs to be put out there. You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, let me check YouTube. Make sure I'm good on YouTube. Make sure I'm good on YouTube. Those of you that missed the live, I guess you're gonna have to catch the replay. All right. Unfortunately. Well, not unfortunate, it's not unfortunate, but you could catch that as well. All right. So first thing first, I want to acknowledge the great spirit, universal intelligence, universal source, the great I am. I want to definitely honor my ancestors and thank them for just always guiding and protecting me. I know that any weapons formed against me will never prosper. All right, because I was sent here for a purpose, and I'm serving that purpose. All right. The information I'm going to share with you today is for educational purposes only. I have a lot of researchable links, just information that you could do your own research, because I tell people, don't believe anything that I say. Okay, I want you to research it yourself. Find your own truth. I have done extensive research. I've been on this journey for a very, very, very long time, seeking answers. And because I've always been curious, okay, the world is not just black and white as we all make it seem to be, or it appears to be. All right, it's a whole lot deeper than that. So in today's lesson, we're going to talk about his story. All right, and I literally mean his story, not history, but his story, because it's ironic that everything that's pretty much based around slavery is always talked about when so-called black people. There's a Black History Month. Everything about slavery, anytime you type in slavery on Google or any major search engine, you see it's always about the Atlantic slave trade and all that. Well, that was done intentionally. Okay, that is one of the biggest misconceptions and lies in the history of man. Okay, saying that we all came from Africa. You see what I'm saying? Now, today, like I said, I'm going to talk about his story. I'm not going to talk about history. I'm going to talk about his story, because no one is talking about his story. Well, I'm going to talk about it today. So we are going to talk about, in essence, where so-called pale people, how they ended up in the Americas, what you call white people. We're going to talk about how they ended up in the Americas. Now, I must give you my disclaimer. Okay, this is by no means to put anybody down. This is by no means to say that we are better than anyone, okay, or we are superior to anyone, okay. But however, it is to educate people. My goal in bringing these facts and this truth forward is that we see history for what it was, okay, and we see our current condition for what it is, and then we could look forward to a brighter future. Okay, learn to forgive each other for the wrongs we have done to each other. So in today's lecture, I'm going to talk a little more so from a different perspective of the so-called kings and queens of Europe. They were, for the most part, all so-called black. And I'm saying so-called black because no one is black and no one is white. So you will hear me say stuff like so-called white and so-called black, just for the purposes of this lesson. With that being said, okay, I'm going to talk about the so-called black nobles, kings and queens of Europe, and the so-called enslavement, not so-called, but the enslavement of so-called white people. Okay, how they ended up in the Americas. All right, and so that's what this lesson is going to be about today. Another one of my reasons, or what I want out of this, is that a lot of these so-called white people, they got to stop with the ego. They got to chill. If you're a so-called white individual, or you're so-called white and you're listening to this video, you have to learn to sit and chill, okay, with this chip that you have on your shoulder, because you are a foreigner. You are immigrants in our land, okay? And I'm not saying that out of hate. I'm not saying that out of animosity. I'm saying that because there have to be a respect that must be taught or developed, okay, for the original people of this land. And it's us. Now, everybody was lied to. I get that. The miseducation was done on pretty much the entire spectrum of this educational system. But when you know the truth, you have to go within the depths of your heart and your soul, okay, and learn to forgive yourself for the grievances, okay, the atrocities that was done to each other, not just the so-called white people, but also the so-called black people. So in today's lesson, I'm going to break a lot of that down. I'm going to give you a whole lot of information. That's why I tell people I don't have time for the games. I don't watch TV. I'm here to teach. That's what I was manifested here for. I'm here to bring back balance. I'm here to bring back peace, because we got to move forward. And the only way for America to be great again is to restore the original people, because our ancestors are not at peace. I never asked my ancestors to rest in peace, because there's too much work to be done. You see what I'm saying? So until the American Aborigines are restored and respected in our ancestral land, there will always be chaos, and people don't realize that. So part of my calling, part of my purpose, part of the reason why I manifested here is to bring everything to light, so we could come to the table and all sit at the table and work our differences together and learn how to commingle. Because guess what? Nobody, immigrants who came here, they're not going anywhere. Okay, they're not going anywhere. That's just the bottom line. And then there's a reason for that, which I will get into in another lesson. However, today we are going to get into the so-called black kings and queens, and we're going to talk about how, so-called white people ended up in the Americas. So let's get into this. All right, I created a site. Like I said, I paid for the site. I paid for the domain and everything. I paid for it for 2 years. I've been doing a lot of work on that, a lot of research. So man, listen, I tell people when I teach and I share information, I don't ask people for money. I don't ask for anything. But a lot of work was put into this, and I'm not telling you have to do anything, but it would be great if you guys could support, so that I could keep the website going and to keep the information going. You're not obligated to, but I personally believe in the laws of reciprocity. When people give unto you, you give unto them. But again, that's optional. Okay, you're not mandated to donate to the website. All right, but it just, again, it would be a great thing. All right. So this is a website that I created for the education of people on a whole, but I created that more so for us, original indigenous people. It's an organization that I put together, because there is no organization that stands for us. Okay, you have stuff for so-called black people, you have stuff for so-called white people, you have stuff for so-called native people, but nobody have anything in place for the so-called original people of this land. So I put that together. So I'm just going to give you a quick tour of the website. You have the homepage. Okay, welcome to the Indigenous Peoples Native Autochthon Network. All right, we are the Aborigines. Welcome. All right, it tells you a little bit about what the website is about. In fact, let me just I will copy that real here, and I'll put that in the link in a few. But thank you for your support. It takes so much time, work, and energy to bring this so needed information to you. So your donations will enable us to maintain the site, continue bringing educational content, and so much more. We are very grateful for your generosity. So you have where you could go ahead and donate to the Cash App, or if you prefer, do it in cryptocurrencies. We have the Bitcoin address there as well. All right, so that information is there. All right, and then I have the etymology of a few words right here. Okay, now that is the home page. Okay, when we click on the drop down button, we have the About Us. You will see, you'll go through, you could go, go spiritual religion. I'm going to create a membership only. um I have nutrition and health, I have library, I have America the Firstborn, which I will be doing a lesson on that, talking about America being the firstborn, why the firstborn is all allegorical, why the firstborn had to be killed. Okay, so all that stuff is allegory, so I'll be talking about that as well, but I'll do a lesson on that another time. Now we're going to get, also we have Aborigines of America. And if you want to go ahead and create an account just so that you could be part of our email database, feel free to do that. But you don't have to do that in order to have access to the information on the site. Okay, so we're going to click on White History Never Told, because that's what we're going to talk about today. All right. For too long, when history is being talked about, it's always about Black people, so-called Black people coming here as slaves, so-called Black people in the transatlantic slave trade, so-called Black people in the Americas. They all come from Africa. Well, all that stuff is a lie. So I'm going to put all of this in perspective today. Again, I've done extensive research on that. I've been working on that for a very long time. So I hope you enjoy the information. You don't necessarily have to take any notes right now, because all that information is on the website. Okay. And I will put it in the link. It's already there, but I'll put it again in the chat, and you guys can take your time and digest the information yourself. Okay, so we're going to talk today about not just history, but we're going to talk about his story. Why isn't there a White History Month? There is a reason for that, because there is no such thing as a White History Month, because you don't have to dig too far to see where so-called white people came from. Okay, where their roots. You don't have to dig too far. That's why they are being guarded, okay, by not talking about so-called white history. That's why they don't have a month. Me personally, I want to abolish Black History Month for a couple of reasons. We are not Black. Secondly, we all did not come here on slave ships. And thirdly, not all so-called Black people came from Africa. The lies have to stop. And I'm going to make sure that I do my best from every fiber of my being to change that narrative. And it goes into the deep research that I've done and I'm continuing to do to bring that information to you. So this is a picture that from Ellis Island, from Europe's immigration timeline, showing the influx of so-called white people coming into the Americas by the millions. Okay, nobody's talking about that, because of this land are not Americans. So it's nothing against so-called white people. Okay, please do not take this the wrong way. That's why I said this is not about hate. It's about teaching the truth. Okay, the only people who have a natural right to call themselves Americans are the American Aboriginals. Everybody else are United States citizens, and that have to be established. All right, and I will talk about that in my presentation as well. Okay, so everybody else, again, they call themselves, if they're going to call themselves Americans, they have to call themselves a hyphened American. Okay, hyphened American, meaning that their origin, where they came from, and they could add America to it. However, the only individuals that are allowed by law, okay, to call themselves Americans are the American Aboriginals. We are just Americans because we are the original. Okay, now For too long, there has been an imbalance when it comes to his story. Every so-called black man, I mean black woman, man, and child were taught or told that we came into the Americas in the bottom of slave ships. That, of course, is a complete lie. However, no one is talking about pale white history or pale white history. There's a little typo here, guys, so I will take care of that typo. Give me a second. Like I said, it's just I've been putting so much work in, man. It's not even funny. Okay, give me 1 second here. I mean, I really, and I know I should have done the the corrections before, but like I said, I was just excited to to bring that to y'all. Okay, so I'm actually gonna take care of that right now because I'm a perfectionist, and it's gonna keep bothering me if I don't do it now. So give me 1 second here, and let me see if I could take care of this. All right, real quick. Right, let me just take care of that and fix that. I mean, if I see other grammatical errors, I'm not gonna do all of them. All right, because it's gonna take up too much time. As long as you get the gist of the message today, that's what this is about. All right, this is what this is about. And please, while I'm doing this, I have to keep reiterating, this is not about hating anybody, but this is about speaking the truth and telling our truth, because no one seems to be telling our truth. The world is not hearing our truth because our truth is being censored. All right. And so the American art, that is my purpose and it will be fulfilled. Give me 1 second here. Guys, do me a favor. While I'm doing this, share this on your respective platforms, please. Okay. We got to teach our children the truth. All right. We got to. We have to teach our children the truth. I am tired of indigenous children running around here calling themselves black, playing these colorful games. That's why they're getting in all these legal situations because they don't exist. All right. So, guys, I just updated that. Okay. So I'm good. So here we are. So what I did was I have a photo gallery of a lot of books that talk about white slavery, okay, all over the world. There are so many books on that. You have White Cargo. You have let me get into a few of them here. We have White Cargo. We have 18th century white slaves fugitive notices. We have the New Emancipation Cause present the people of the United States. Then we have another one here. Then when we scroll down some more, we have white gold. Okay, white slaves were called white gold, especially their women. Okay. Then we have the Jewish white slaves. Yes, Jewish people own their own slaves. You have the Jewish slave trade. You have the white slavery in the barbarian states where they were enslaving not just so-called white people, but they were enslaving American Indians as well. Okay. Then we have the light, which talks about white slaves again, white slaves of either the oppressed. Then you have the Body City commercial sex and regulation in Baltimore. That was pretty much a sex ring with so-called white women, a prostitute ring with so-called imported white women. We have the forgotten slave trade, talking about the white Europeans in America. Okay. We have the white slave, the true story of Richard Heselton. We have the white slave or the Russian peasant girl. We have the white slavery in colonial America. I mean, it's just so much document. All right. We have they were white and they were slaves, the white slaves and African masters. We have the Christian slaves and Muslim masters. I mean, again, it's just so many books. Okay, white slaves and new emancipation cause presented to the United States. So I put a lot of that information there for you. And I have here, only the truth will set us free. You see, the perception of the truth will not set us free. We have to, in order for the healing to start, we have to get to the bottom of the truth. This is when the Moors ruled Europe. Okay, certain parts of Europe, not all of Europe, but certain part of Europe, they had, white concubines. Okay, and that's a fact. All right, so that's one of the images from there. Okay, and this man is protecting his so-called white concubine. As you can see, he's shielding her from that king or that whatever noble he was. All right, all this information is public information, but it's not being taught. Why is there a Black History Month but not a White History Month? Slavery, indentured servantry, however we choose to call it, was a worldwide phenomenon. The color, complexion of one's skin didn't matter. It was all about commerce, business. Skin. Okay, it later it was perpetuated as such, but it was never about the color of one's skin. It was just business. All right. If we are going to heal this world, it must be done through the lens of truth. We need to see what it is, what it was, what it is, and what it can become. Let's forgive each other and move on in peace, love, and respect for each other. No one's skin is white or black. All right. By the early 1600s, communities of European African immigrants, slaves, indentured servants arrived in America. Others as well dotted the eastern seaboard, including the Spanish in Florida, the British in New England and Virginia, the Dutch in New York, and the Swedes in Delaware. Some, including the Pilgrims and Puritans, came for religious freedom. Many sought greater economic opportunities. Before there were any immigrant slaves and or indentured servants, our American Aboriginal ancestors, aka American Indians, were being sent to Africa, Europe, and Asia as indentured servants and slaves. In 1492, black men came to our American shores. We welcomed them like brothers. Not too long after, they unleashed wars on our ancestors. Many of our ancestors were enslaved, raped, murdered. It has been one of the worst, if not the worst, Holocaust in human history. You see, nobody's talking about that. Well, let's put this in perspective. All right. Before 1492, before there were any so-called slaves that came from the foreign shores, American Indians were being enslaved. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, guess who were enslaving our ancestors? It were people that looked like us, with dark skin, brown skin, tawny, swati, whatever term that you want to use. They look like us. And when they came here, okay, it says my mic is going in and out. Guys, can you guys hear me? I don't know why my mic is going in and out. If you could hear me, do me a favor, please go ahead and type 1 in the chat. If you could hear me, please type 1 in the chat. All right, thank you. So yes, somebody said they can't hear me. So it must be your device, family. Please check your device. Okay, I appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Okay. So with that being said, the first people who came here to enslave us, they looked like us. They were so-called planes. I don't know why is that going in and out. It's ironic that all of a sudden, my speakers are going in and out, right? But hopefully we could get through this and you guys could hear it. It says my mic is messing up. Let me see. I don't know what I could do about that, family. I really don't know. It says that's how you know Yep, yep. Yeah, because for some reason my mic is being messed up, but it's all good. So now what I did was I have a timeline here. Okay, January 1776. Thomas Paine publishes a pamphlet, Common Sense, that argues for American independence. Most colonists consider themselves Britons, but Paine makes the case for a new American, Europe and not England, as the parent country of America. This new have been the asylum for the persecuted lovers of civil and religious liberty from every part of Europe, he writes. March 1790, Congress passes the first law about who should be granted U.S. citizenship. The Naturalization Act of 1790 allows any free white person of good character, okay, because there were so called white people that were not of good character, okay? So when you read, you have to read with understanding. Who has been living in the United States for 2 years or longer to apply for citizenship. Without citizenship, non-white residents are behind basic constitutional protections, including the right to vote on their own property or testify in court. August 1790. Also keep in mind, okay, the first census was done in 1790. All right, 1790, the first U.S. census takes place. The English are the largest ethnic group among the 3.9 million people counted. One in every five African descendants did the census. A lot of American Indians did too, but there were the majority that didn't. 1815, peace is reestablished between the United States and Britain after the War of 1812. Immigration from Western Europe turns from a trickle into a gush, which causes a shift in the demographics of the United States. The first major wave of immigrants lasts until the Civil War. Between 1820 and 1860, the Irish, many of them Catholic, account for an one-third of all immigrants to the United States. Some 5 million German immigrants also came to the U.S., many of them making their way to the Midwest to buy farms or settle in cities including Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Cincinnati. 1819, many of the newcomers arrived sick or dying from their long journey across the Atlantic in cramped conditions. In response, the United States passes the Sturridge Age Act of 1819, requiring better conditions on ships arriving to the country. The act also calls for ship captains to submit demographic information on passengers, creating the first federal records on the ethnic composition of immigrants to the United States. 1865, the 13th Amendment, ratified in 1865, essentially abolished slavery, but also made it legal to exploit people as a punishment for a crime. That's why they had to start putting people in jail. All right, because if they start putting you in jail, then that means you lost your civil rights. Okay, neither slavery nor involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime. All right, meaning that they could take your civil liberties. 1893, the Dawes Commission was organized in 1893 to accept application for tribal enrollment between 1899 and 1907 from American Indians of the 5 civilized tribes who resided in the Indian Territory, which later became the eastern portion of Oklahoma. If you guys heard my conversation with the Cherokee Nation, that's what they are talking about, and that was what they used. Okay, they used that system or that Dawes Commission to expel the so-called Black Indians, okay, from the Dawes Roads. All right, because that was part of the paper genocide. All right, and that only happened once again. It was organized in 1893, where they were killing us on paper, making us extinct on paper, and putting other people in our place. All right, June 2nd, 1924, Indian Citizen Act was passed. On June 2nd, 1924, Congress enacted the Indian Citizen Act, which granted citizenship to all Native Americans born in the United States. The right to vote, however, was governed by the state law until 1957. Some states barred Native Americans from voting. Okay, so I just kind of wanted to give you a little history on that. Now, we are going to connect the dots. Connecting the dots. All right. How did this so-called white people and so-called black slaves come into the Americas? So what you're going to do is you're going to click on find out more. All right. Now, it's a little bit information from the sources where I got all that information. So I don't want to just do the presentation or the lesson and not give you the researchable information so that you're able to do your own research. Okay, black kings and queens. Connecting the dots is essential because I'm about bringing facts that when researched in details, the storyline adds up. Up until the mid 1800s to possibly the late 1800s, the majority of kings and queens and some queens in Europe were so-called black. And that's why I put parentheses, so that indicates so-called black, because no one is black and or white. Okay, and or mix. These black kings were the ones who formed the 13 colonies in America. So once again, don't allow anybody to fool you. The 13 colonies in America wasn't created or formed by the so-called pale man or the white man. Okay, the so-called pale man or the white man had no power in the Americas like that then. Okay, that was formed and created by black nobles from Europe. Okay, just so y'all know, they created the 13 colonies. All right, and then of course I have images of King James the Sixth. He's the one who wrote the Holy Bible. And may I add, the Holy Bible is not a book that was all over the world. That is King James genealogy. That's a book about that's his big mama book. Okay. And the custom was them writing their genealogy in the Bible. And that practice was brought into the Americas. Okay. That's why you will see that the further back you go, before they had the census, the registry, all of that, okay, or the registrar, they used to do birth records in the Bible, because the Bible was a record book of births and genealogy. And the Bible is the genealogy of King James. Okay, it had nothing to do with American Aborigines. We were not Christians. We were not Christians. We were not Muslims. We were not none of that. Okay, we had our own religious and spiritual systems. Okay, just so y'all know. All right. Now, keep in mind, King James the Sixth, he was the one who wrote who rewrote his mama's Bible and came into the Americas. Then we have King of Scott, Alexander the Second. Those were some of the men. King James the Sixth, and was also of the King of Scotland as James Sixth from July 24th to July 24th. And King of England. All of a sudden, the live just cut out. But it's all good. I guess when you're speaking too much truth, that's what happens. Okay, let me go back and share what I was doing. Give me 1 second. That's crazy though. That's crazy, man. They just literally took my life off. Wow. This is something else. Let me go ahead and share this real quick. Okay. So here we are. Okay, so connecting the dots, right? The five black founding fathers of the colony, of the 13 colonies. Here they are. Okay. King Stuart, King Charles the First, King Charles the Second, King James the Second, and King George. All right. King George was the one who set up the colony of Georgia, what we call Georgia right now. Okay. So now let's talk about the synopsis. Before 1492, life on the American continent was pretty much known to just us Aborigines on a whole. Yes, there may have been some form of earlier migration, but on a grand geographical scale, the continent was not known worldwide. And then I added a map. If you click on that link right here, you will see the map. All right. That at that time in 450 BC, America wasn't known to the world on a grand scale. It was just Europe, Asia, and Libya. The name Africa wasn't even on the map. Later, that continent became Africa, but it was called Libya at that time. All right. It was called Libya at that time. Let me see if I could show you guys this map. Give me 1 second. All right. Let me show you guys the map. So this is the map right here, okay? This is the map right there, the map of 450 BC, the Herodotus map, where it shows that the United States, not the United States, but the Americas, wasn't even known to the world like that on a world scale. So as far as they are concerned, that was the world, okay? That was the world. All right. Let me go back here. Okay. Before 1492, there were constant wars in Asia, Europe, and Libya, Africa, and Africa. Indentured servitude, slavery was part of their commercial world. There were many wars fought over religious gods in the quest of taking over neighboring countries, lands, etc. Wealth was measured, it's supposed to be by the conquest of lands. Even people of the same race, but different empires and kingdoms fought each other over in the name of their gods and religion. One of the major pieces of history that's always seemed to be omitted is the fact that many ethnic groups of pale white people were enslaved all over the world that was known then. They were bought and sold as servants, slaves, and even as trophy pieces to the point where they were called white gold, especially their women. As we already established, the majority of queendoms were governed and ruled by so-called black kings and queens and black queens and kings. In hindsight, this was pretty much known as the Dark Ages for these pale white people. Many attempts were made to abolish slavery and replace it with what was known as serfdom. Serfdom, but slavery was just too much of a profitable business. Please note that black means pale, and I put the etymology of the word black. Okay? Many centuries before 1492, these kings and possibly queens took their pale white servants, slaves as concubines and husbands. The intermixing of the pale race with the darker races created a new kind of heir to the throne. The mixed children of these great kings went to war with their black fathers for many centuries in order to free their pale white grandfathers. With some victories, some of the black kings and rulers now became servants, prisoners of war by their own children. Example of that is when one of the examples is when the Moors lost their reign. Okay, a lot of them became servants and prisoners of war by their own children. All right. When America was so called discovered in 1492, many of the monarchs in Europe were still black. Talks about this new world across the seas became a relevant topic to the point where expeditions were put in place in search of this new world. Once America was discovered, and I put discovered in parentheses because we were already here, but to them, it was the new world. So it was a discovery to them by these foreigners. There was a mutual interest for the crown slash crowns and now prisoners of war to unite for the big takeover of our lands. Please keep in mind the first slave trade in the Americas were the enslavement and the Holocaust of American Aborigines. American Aborigines were taken to Asia, Africa, and mainly Europe as servants slash slaves, token pieces, etc. Many American Aborigines were slaughtered in wars defending our ancestral lands and people. One could say these colonizers suddenly became sympathetic with the plight of the American Indian, that enslaving and abusing American Indians was outlawed. Since slavery and servantry was all commercial, who would take the place of these American Indians? Well, if you said the pale white man, then you are absolutely correct. Even though a few of the crowns were now ruled by mixed children, the majority of them were still black. With that being said, pale white people that were poor, criminals, vagabonds, thieves, etc., became the new commercial slaves. Due to the extreme heat and exhaustion from the sun, the pale slash white slaves were getting sick and or dying. That was when a discussion by all the business partners who participated in slavery at that time decided to start making people who looked like them black indentured servants slash slaves. The narrative that millions of black people came here as slaves in the bottom of ships packed like sardines is a complete lie. Over 90% of these people knew they were going to a foreign land to work on contracts. Their kings, chiefs, etc., got paid in advance to send their subjects to the new world. These black servant slaves were not just Africans, they were Asians, Europeans, as well as black Germans, the black Irish and Scottish, the original Hebrews, aka Israelites. The majority of these people did not become slaves until after their 7-year contracts were up and became slaves against their will. Okay, so once again, just to reiterate, all right, all these millions of so-called black people they told you that came from Africa on slave ships, that's a lie. Okay, a lot of these people came here from different parts of the world, particularly Europe. Okay, and they came here on contracts as indentured servants. Okay, their kings, their chiefs, whatever you want to call them, they knew where they were going. They got paid to send them into the new world on contracts. All right, the majority of them did not become slaves until they got into the Americas, and the contracts of servitude, it wasn't honored, and hence they became slaves. All right, the Americas became the hot melting pot for the business of slavery by all ethnic groups. Slavery was not about the color of one's skin, it was about the number in order to produce. Long story short, slaves from all walks of life started rebelling against these black tyrants. It made it easier for them because the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Germans, British were fighting each other as well as fighting the American Indians. Slaves were bribed to pick sides Even some of our ancestors took part in enslaving all groups, including their own. With all the wars, victories, and defeats, it was about the last man standing. The first civil rights wasn't about black people, it was about pale white servants, slaves who wanted to fit into the new society. Then later, other groups, and eventually it became about the blacks. There were three major powers left from all the earlier wars: the Iroquois Confederacy for the American Indians, the Republic for the black kings from across the seas, and the United States for the pale white man. So let me put this in perspective. Okay. With all the wars that were going on, all right, and when they had the white slaves here, eventually they wanted to fit into society. Okay, so I'm talking about much later. That was pretty much what the first civil war was about. But and then it became, about Italians. Then it came about the so-called white Irish, and eventually it became about so-called black people. All right, so the civil rights had nothing to do with us. It just became our mission because we were the last ones, all right, to become civilians. All right. Now, keep that in mind. While all the wars and chaos was happening in the Americas, wars and chaos were also happening in Europe. These mixed kings and queens made their mission to free all their pale white grandfathers. Eventually, the pale white man outconned them all. His biggest victory was the American Revolutionary War. He got everyone to join him in fighting the last of the black kings and queens of Great Britain. They were fighting for their freedom from their black masters. Now think about this. Yeah, I know. They try to take out the live, and then they took out the live, and then now they're messing with my audio. So what I'm gonna do is, even if I do this live, I think I'm gonna do a recording of it, and then I'll have to upload it. Okay. But just so you all know, the American Revolutionary War was about pretty much the so-called pale white Americans or United States citizens fighting their black kings and queens of England. Okay, that's what that was really about. Now think about it. If you're from Europe, okay, why would you be fighting your own people for freedom? They were fighting people that didn't look like them. They were fighting black kings and queens. Okay, but at the same time, there was also uprising in that side of the world, all right, where the mixed children were also fighting their fathers to free their white grandfathers. So that the wars were happening simultaneously, just so y'all know. All right. It may have seemed that they won the war, but in essence, it was a deal that was made between the new royals of England and the New World. Hence, the Americas, for the most part, is still under the crown. That's why today, the United States is still, and most part of America, for the most part, if not all of it, is still under the crown because they never really won the Revolutionary War. Okay, it was a truce that was made. All right. And the transition took place from the black nobles to now what you have, the white crown. Okay. And yes, some of this black royalty are still behind the scenes running things because the new form of slavery is still about business. All right. Even up to this present day, you have the Black Caucus. All of these, a lot of those people are still part of that, the descendants of those so-called black nobles. They know the truth. Okay. But the ultimate goal or the ultimate key was World War One. World War One was his. When I say his, the pale man stamp as the dominant world power. That was the last major war that freed their pale white grandfathers from all over the world. So that, in essence, was what World War One was really about. Them freeing the rest of the enslaved so-called grandfathers or their forefathers around the world. All right. And then I put a list of wars right here for you guys. Okay, so you could click on all those links. All the researchable information is there for you to look at. It's there, so do your own research. All right. So guys, like I said, what I'm gonna do is, since they messed with the live and they messing with my audio, I will definitely do a recording of this so it'll be a whole lot more clear. All right. So I kind of like, paraphrase and summarize everything that happened because it's just so much. I mean, I couldn't get into all of it, but I gave you a synopsis of it all. All right. So the moral of the story is, you know, let us stop spreading the propaganda and the lies that every so-called black person that's in the Americas, first, they're slaves. Okay. Because when any foreigner came to our land, they saw aborigines on this land, the original people. That's number one. Number two, okay, and then I'm paraphrasing this. Number two, when they started enslaving the aborigines, okay, they, I guess their conscience or whatever it was led them to to kind of like stop enslaving, okay, to stop enslaving, the American Indians. And then the deal was, why don't we just enslave all the white criminals, the vagabonds, even before any so-called black slaves came here. Okay. They sent them here, but they were dying out. And then that's when the deal was made to bring so-called black people here. But these people were not, majority of them were not Africans. Okay. They were black people from Scotland. All right. And guys, do me a favor, please. If you're going to support, please do that on the website because YouTube, they are censoring my information, and the donations that you do on YouTube, I'm not even getting it. They're preventing me from getting it. Okay, so if you're going to support, Royal determined, I appreciate that, but what you just did, I don't even have access to that. All right, because YouTube is literally messing with me, but I do appreciate it. So if you guys are gonna support and donate, do it. Please do that on the website. Okay, please do that on the website. And I do have to do some I have to do some editing, on the website, with in terms of grammatical errors. Okay, but I'm just giving you a synopsis of what happened. Okay, so once again, King James, King George, they were all black kings. Somebody asked about the Israelites. I already spoke about that. The Israelites are the original Irish and the Scottish. Okay, the Irish and the Scottish, they are literally the same people. Okay, of the Gaelic tribes, but they just speak a different dialect, but they have the same root. They are the original ones are the Jacobites, okay, the descendants or from the tribe of King James, which was the first Jacobin, and he changed his name to Israel. Okay, so that's pretty much in hindsight what transpired in summary. So I'm saying all that to say, okay, these Caucasians and so-called white people that's on our land, y'all gotta chill, okay, because y'all were the first slaves in the Americas. Okay, you got to stop skinning up your nose and looking at us like you're better than us. I'm not saying that we are better than you, but the point I'm making is you were the first slaves here, and you guys call it indentured servantry, but no, you were slaves. Let's keep it real. Okay, I'm tired of everybody always talking about slaves when it's so-called black people, when the truth of the matter is it was the reverse. You feel me? Every ethnic group was enslaved around the world, period. Okay? Around the world, white people were peasants, prisoners, vagabonds. America, our land, is what saved them. So they need to show some respect and gratitude to the original people of this land. Okay? And let me tell you another reason why. Another reason why a lot of white people, okay, it's not because of racism, it is because of fear. That's why there's no such thing as history, White History Month, because they know where they came from and they're afraid to go back there. They know they came and they were ruled by black kings and queens. And that's what they're afraid of. It's not because they hate you, it's fear. They are afraid. They know where they came from. So when you see the police, the president, they're Irish. Okay, who do you think was their kings? Joe Biden, Joe Biden ancestors. Every American president, except one, are all related. They are all from British, Irish, Scottish, and German descendants. Guess who their masters were? Black kings and queens. Okay, so that's in the back of their mind. So they put all black people in one big pot because it's reminding them from where they came from. They're not even differentiating between the Aborigines and the so-called black people or the black kings that did that to them. You feel me? So when you see you are stuck by these authority, especially so-called white cops, they know. Okay, that's why they have so much aggression towards us, because it's post-traumatic, I don't know if you want to call it stress or whatever it is, that's in the back of their mind. If they relinquish power, they may be slaves again. But you see, slavery was a business then. So we have to learn to get over that. Come to the table. Everybody need to come and have a discussion, an open discussion, and start the healing. Because we are not going to continue to allow this system, okay, to kill us in the streets or to make us think that, we are all slaves that came from Africa. You could only push people to a certain extent. So I say, that's my goal. Let us all come to the table and talk, put the truth out there for once, and let's start the healing process and let everybody be respected. That is my solution. But we are not going to continue this lie. We are not going to do that. Every time you start talking about white history, they censor you, they take your stuff out. It goes against their standards or their community, whatever it is. Because they don't want the truth to come out. Okay, you cannot come into somebody's land as an occupier and think you're superior. Okay, so kill the ego. Chill with that. Come to the table. Let's all talk, because this is our land. All right? And before I conclude, let's make it very, very, very clear. There's a difference between an American and a United States citizen. Let us stop calling the United States America. America is a continent, and that's a continent that we, the Aborigines, we were given guardianship of. Okay, custodian. We are the natural custodians of this land. Okay? So, United States citizens are not Americans. So have some respect for the original people. All right? So, like I said, I'm going to do a clean recording of this without any of the interruptions, and then I will put it on my Rumble. I'll also put it on YouTube and Facebook at that point. All right? And just for the record, I've said this before. All right? American Aborigines are not Moors. We are not Moors. Okay, Moors are from the other continents. In fact, a lot of them played the role in coming here as well, enslaving our people. Okay, that was part of the Republic. The Republic was set up for all the so-called blacks that came from across the seas, including the nobles and their children. Okay, whether they were from England, Britain, Scotland, Ireland, Spain, it doesn't matter. Okay, that was for them. The Iroquois Confederacy was for the American Indians, and the United States was for the white man and his children. But like I said, the white man outsmart each and every one of them to fight against each other, join him, and defeat everybody. And now the United States was the last one standing. Okay, the Republic is still there, but it's dormant. They literally took out everything that stood for the American Aborigines, which was the Confederacy. And just for the record again, the Confederate flag doesn't belong to the KKK. Okay, the Confederate flag belonged to American Aborigines because they were the first Confederates. You see, y'all gotta know y'all history. You gotta know your story. Okay, y'all gotta know and teach your children the truth. Okay, so this video wasn't to incite any type of hatred, animosity towards any particular group. It is just to put the truth on the table so that we could have an honest, open discussion and start the healing on our land and stop oppressing, okay, the original people of the land and think America is going to be great. No, the more you oppress us, the more pestilence, disease, I'm telling you, and natural disasters will happen. I promise you that, because our ancestors are not at ease, period. Okay, so once again, guys, I appreciate you guys. This is the website. It's there. Go ahead and by all means, please support, because I have a whole lot more information to come. I'm also going to do a lesson on America, the continent, the firstborn. So I'm putting all the information together right now. I have a lot of great research to show you that America was actually the firstborn of all the continents. Okay, when they started breaking up. All right, and yes, there was Pangea, or whatever you call it, wasn't the first huge supercontinent. There was one before that. All right, and North America was the heart of that main supercontinent. Okay, so I'm going to be breaking that down and share that knowledge with everybody. So, guys, you guys enjoy the rest of your continuation. I hope you found some value in this. Don't believe anything that I say. Please do your own research, because eventually the truth will come out. You could only suppress the truth for so long, and I promise you it will come out. So you guys have a good one. This is Chief Kalinago. I love you guys. Take care.